The kamov KA32, or actually the 26 is the one that I'm talking about right now. Originally it was designed, it's actually, you'd find under the designation of Ranult. And it was actually, like I say, a German helicopter. And it did not use a turbine engine originally. Originally it was just using a Rolls-Royce Merlin or gas engine with like a supercharger or a turbocharger. Basically a high performance, really high performance engine. I think it used all aluminum block, piston driven. I don't think they used the radial engines, but they later on probably did include the radial engines in them for cooling and stuff like that. I think because they found that they could do away with the coolant system and still have an adequate amount of power. Anyway, that was one of my things. But the kamov 26, there was one particular one where you could buy the helicopter and a car or truck or light truck, small light truck. That would basically, would fit, there's a rack that would go up underneath there and it would lock in place, and you could just drive your car up underneath. And it was a helicopter designed so you could actually land it and then with your car on the back, and then drive your car, land the helicopter and then drive your car off the back, and then drive around town, and then drive back to your helicopter, and then drive back up in there, and then just lock it in place and lift off and fly off. It was designed to be able to lift a light car or truck, or light truck, basically. A very light one. But anyway, anyway though, and it was actually sold as a package. That's why we initially designed the helicopter. It uses two engines. One engine will, because one drive shaft goes underneath and one drive shaft goes up on top, and it turns the two helicopter blades counter-rotatedly, and because you have a left and right engine, and basically you accelerate one to turn one way and accelerate the other one to turn the other way, and very simple. And then it uses the rudder and the rudder to actually turn at speed. Anyway, it was a very popular and very good helicopter. They actually called it the Screaming Mimis. That's actually what they call Screaming Mimis, because they would make that high-pitched, or shriekers, or shriek, or banshees. They also called them the Banshee, because it made that shrieking noise. You know, I think from the fans or whatever. I think with the air-cooled engine, we had a fan drive or something like that off of one thing, so it'd cool the engine better. And I think in that case, the air-cooled engines actually did do better than the piston engines. We made it both ways, with pistons and then later on with the radial engines. And I think we might even tried a Wankel engine inside of it. But anyway, the point was you could drive a small car inside there and basically lift it off. And we actually kind of used it as a helicopter test bed for different engines and some other things, and messed around with it quite a bit, actually. And then later on we made a couple of them with the jet engines, or jet turbine engines, one on each side to lift off and fly around, the bigger ones. And that actually led to the Sky Crane version of that, which is used more commonly by the U.S. or American government, actually, my government. Though you might call me crazy. Anyway, though, but with the you could buy them with a car or truck, or you could buy them with just the extended carrier in the back. It's basically made so it's sectional, so there's like this little box that you could pick up that was basically like you could get in it, and it would be like either a 6-person helicopter or a 2-person and a car helicopter, pretty much. And it was a very popular model, and basically LS, Lucifer Star. When I purchased Germany, I basically owned Renault manufacturing. Well, I built the Renault manufacturing plant and also the Renault paint shop. And later on, I thought, well, why not build a gas turbine engine, a gas piston engine helicopter for the civilian market? Because, you know, with the jet turbine engine, it's really expensive and there's a lot of fuel and cost in there. But gasoline engines did provide enough power, and there's also the air-cooled engine, and with a big enough fan going shh, and I think that's what the whale is, the fan blowing air past the Lycoming engine, basically. There would be two of them, one on each side. You could either do it piston or you could do it with the Lycoming engine. There's a couple of engines offered basically with that, and you'd get the car as well, which would basically be a high-performance sports car, whatever, that you could drive, or a truck, basically. And I think four-wheel drive. I'm not exactly sure. There was weight concerns and all that other stuff, but it was fairly popular. But with every one of those ones, with open ones in the back, you could get a car. Some people bought them and then kept the car and then sold the helicopter, or sold the car and kept the helicopter. So anyway. And then eventually they got resold as basically farm equipment for crop dusting and other things, and also for also used by news as well. Anyway, they were fairly well. I mean, they were pretty expensive, but not that expensive. Probably about like equivalent of like $500,000 today, or $150,000 today, pretty much. They weren't that expensive, and we made quite a few of them, and they were very popular. So. Anyway, because they were easy to fly, you didn't need to worry about, you didn't need to worry about, countering the rotational spin. That's one of the reasons why I went with the dual blades and everything, because almost anyone can fly them. You just lift off. The other ones where you have to counter the rotation of the blade, those were more military. The counter rotating two blades, because I was going to release that was actually the first civilian helicopter, by the way. I was going to release the other helicopters, but I mean, civilians couldn't fly them. I mean, you needed too much practice, and it was like a military thing, and we tried it, but a couple of people crashed, and I was like, ugh, no. So you need at least like 6 months or 3 months training to actually be able to fly the normal kind of helicopter where, you have a rotator. Much more easy we mass produce the single rotors a lot more than the dual rotors. The dual rotors were for the civilian market, or basically LS or LC, I don't know, LS, LC, one of those manufacturing points, basically Lucifer Civilian, which civilian was actually with an S, by the way, originally. So that's why LS was basically all civilian things. Shipping, civilian release, civilian with an S. And then LC was combat, military, whatever, which was basically the mass-produced stuff, the single rotors, the stuff you needed serious training for, and you actually had to have a pilot. In which case I would train and hire and had pilots, and then, basically loan out my pilots to people, for things like news and other things, or just freelance, crop dusting or whatever. So that's where I kind of bridged on because the single rotor helicopters, I mean, they were a perfectly good technology and everything else, but you needed a lot more training to fly them. Once you get in the air, it's okay, but and for a seasoned plant, for anyone with over a year experience, but I mean, I just felt safer with the dual rotors. So the dual rotors were for civilians, and the single rotors were for military and other things like news and stuff like that, where you're going to be flying every day. So anyway, so that's what happened. That's how we get the dual rotors, and those were actually offered to the public first, over the single rotors. Anyway, so yeah. And then eventually a lot of people bought the single rotors, because we mass produced the single rotors a lot more, because they're just simpler. It's easier to do one shaft and then one rotor, or two engines going into one rotor. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to do the two rotors, which was a lot more expensive. It made the price not just double, but like triple what the other ones would cost. So anyway.